Alrighty, I think we can go ahead and get started. It's 5 after the hour, so I think we should be good to go. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hannah Rowell. I'm a project manager with Griffin and Strong PC. Thank you so much for joining us today for the City of High Point, North Carolina 2025 Disparity Study Public Meeting Session. First, can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bettina. So I'm going to get started with just a brief presentation to give an overview and some information about the disparity study and about the public meeting session today. And then the main point of this session is obviously for me to take a step back and hand the floor over for you guys to discuss and share any testimony or comments that you have about your experience doing business with the City of High Point or attempting to do business with the City of High Point. So first I'm going to get into my brief presentation. Buttons. Oh, there we go. Okay. So first, just a little bit about Griffin and Strong PC. As I mentioned, we are a firm that specializes in procurement research, training, and supplier diversity consulting, contract compliance, and program development. We are the most qualified team in the industry with 6 Juris Doctors, 2 PhDs in economics, a PhD in social psychology, as well as anthropology. Important to note, we have never had a study that was conducted by us that was ever challenged or overturned in court. That's significant to us because obviously disparity studies are a creation of the court. So that's something that we always like to mention. Just a brief overall objective of the study. So disparity study is a research tool that really is used to determine disparities in a governmental agency's procurement activities, any disparities that exist within certain race, ethnic, or gender groups across various industry categories, typically looking at construction, architecture, and engineering, so construction-based professional services, other professional services, goods, and any other services or commodities. We also use the study to further determine whether, if any disparities do exist, if they're statistically significant, and if they're likely caused by race and gender status of firm owners, or if there are any other race and gender neutral factors that may be having these causes. The disparity study utilizes anecdotal evidence collection, so qualitative data collection. But one example of those anecdotal evidence collections is the meeting that you're currently participating in today. We also examine policy, procedures, and practices of the City of High Point and conduct a case law review. The findings of the disparity study result in recommendations that Griffin and Strong will make to the city. And if they are accepted, the intent of those recommendations that come out of the study are intended to be implemented as policy. So this chart kind of summarizes a little bit of what I just spoke about in the study process as a whole. So as I mentioned, we start off with a case law analysis. This looks at the overarching larger cases that determined what a disparity study is, created a disparity study, as well as looking at any relevant case law in the circuit courts. We then do purchasing policies and procedure review. So we review policy documents from the city and conduct policy interviews with key city members, city leaders. Then we start our data collection process and data analysis process, beginning with collecting and cleaning any data from the City of High Point that they've provided to us. And then we take that data and start with a relevant market analysis. This is kind of where we use our radiate out methodology. We're trying to find the economic market for where the City of High Point is spending a majority of their dollars. So we're trying to identify where 75% at least of their money is being spent. So we'll start with the City of High Point and radiate out into the surrounding jurisdictions until we've identified where 75% of that money is. From the relevant market analysis, we'll conduct a utilization analysis. So the firms that are being utilized by the city, the availability of firms in the relevant market. And then in the comparison of the utilization and availability is where we get our disparity analysis. And then the regression analysis is where we do look at those gender and race neutral factors. So we control for race and gender to see if those disparities that possibly exist still exist after controlling for those neutral factors. We also do the anecdotal evidence collection process. We have a survey of business owners. We do anecdotal interviews, one-on-one, organizational interviews. We do the public meeting sessions like today. We have focus groups. So we really do a lot of anecdotal evidence collection to try and speak to as many people as we possibly can and get the public involved as much as possible. And then the final report and recommendations is, as I mentioned earlier, where GSPC will put together recommendations that we intend to have implemented as policy if the city accepts them. Okay, so a little bit about how you can get involved. Just being vocal, obviously participating in today's meeting is a great example of that. You can also be vocal in your community. You can send comments and questions to the disparity study email. Just anything you can do to participate is great for getting involved, obviously. Completing the survey of business owners, I will share that link to the survey of business owners in the chat towards the end of this meeting. That is a way for us to kind of quantify anecdotal experiences of business owners in the city of High Point, their experiences doing business with the city or attempting to do so. Participating in an anecdotal interview one-on-one, or if you're contacted for a focus group session, is also a great way to participate. Those are not open to the public. So if you do get a phone call or an email saying that you were selected from the sample for those sessions, then that's another way to participate. Obviously, today's public meeting session. You can keep up with the study updates by visiting the Disparity Study website, highpointdisparitystudy.com. And then, like I mentioned, sending comments to the study's designated email. So there you can ask questions. I monitor the email. I check it 2 to 3 times a week to make sure I'm keeping up to date. Like I said, you can ask questions, or if you're uncomfortable sharing your testimony or your experiences on a public forum, then you can always send in a letter or an email format of your testimony or anything that you would like to share to the study email, and it can be taken into account to the anecdotal evidence that way. I'll also make sure to copy those links into the chat as well. This is just kind of a general connect with us page. We do have a Facebook and a Twitter, as well as our website. And then once again, I just mentioned the study email and the study website, which I will post in the chat. Okay, so this is the part that we're here for today. We have our virtual public input session. So the overall purpose of this session is to hear candid testimony about your experiences, whether they be positive experiences or areas of concern that you have in doing business or attempting to do business with the city of High Point. Just a disclaimer that everything said during this meeting will be available for public record, but our final report that we publish does not include names, business names, or any other affiliations of any individuals who give testimony. So the process for this public session is that we're not soliciting questions, just commentary. And additionally, I'll not be responding necessarily to any questions or commentary about the study or anything like that, other than if I try and maybe gain additional clarity to any comments that you make. And then when you start to give your comments or testimony, if you would please start by stating your name and your business name for my notes before beginning your testimony. Okay, so I know I've done a lot of talking in the start here, but now I'm handing the floor over to you guys. If anybody wants to start off the conversation with their name and their business name and give us their testimony and their comments and their experiences about doing business. Yes, Dr. Hairston.
I would like to say, first of all, good afternoon to everyone. Dr. Elma Hairston, founder and managing director of Dynamic Images International. And the one thing that I will say, with or without the data undeniably, there is disparity in federal, state, and municipal contracting with Black businesses. It is just a fact of life. And it is great to have you all do the data to really confirm what we, quite frankly, already know. The one thing that I would like to see happen in the city of High Point is that they uh, make some efficiencies come to fore as relates to their vendor portal. I am enrolled in the vendor portal, but I never seem to get any information about specific contracting or RFPs in my area, and I know that they're out there. I am registered with the historically underutilized business, um, US government, all of the contractors, and I constantly get information from all of these entities. Many of those are not about my organization, but at least I'm getting information. But from the city of High Point, how can we participate? And you are registered in the portal, and you don't, and you are under the correct codes. We have confirmed that, and you still don't get information about any RFPs or any existing positions or any existing work that comes up in the professional services space, training and development, professional development and things of that nature, customer service are my specialties, and that falls under the other business categories. And I know that those types of work does exist, but we don't hear about it. But from what I do observe is City of High Point continues to use the same people and the same entities for the work that has been done with the city. And I truly hope that this disparity study will give some credence to the fact that there are professional, well-qualified people of color, Black businesses out there that can do an admirable job if given the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm looking this way because I'm jotting down notes as you're speaking. I'm not ignoring you. So thank you so much for giving that testimony. I really appreciate you kicking off the meeting. Is there anyone who would like to share their experiences, their testimony, possibly piggyback off of anything that Dr. Hairston mentioned?
I would like to second. My name is Jeremiah Jett. I'm sitting in for my mom, Crystal Jett. We are under being great. My whole thing is that there's not a lot of opportunities for young people to get fully involved with business and the success of business. On this, there's been a recent rise, I want to say maybe like the last 10, 20 years of young people wanting to get actively involved doing business, being more in entrepreneurship and getting involved with the city. But there is such, I want to say, a barrier to young people having access to getting involved. So I I just basically want to second what Dr. Harrison said.
Mr. Jett, may I suggest something for you? I don't know if Dr. Talisha Roberts is on this call. She is the new executive director of Thrive High Point. You are a prime candidate. I'm telling you, you are a prime candidate to connect with Dr. Roberts at Thrive High Point. They're looking for folks like you. So please get in touch with her.
Thank you. I'm going to write her information down right now, and I'm looking at her. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah, for sharing that.
Good afternoon. My name is Jermaine Parson. I'm the CEO of Semper Fidelis Security Services. We're out of Charlotte, North Carolina, but I'm a High Point native. We're actually trying to transition and have a location here in this area. We actually currently work a few locations in High Point, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Wilmington. We're a minority-owned business. We're military. We're all pretty much former Marines or former law enforcement. And we're just trying to reach out ourselves to be seen and help and get in where we fit in. We've seen several other companies in this area who provide security services, but it's a pretty much a tight network for us to break in, even though we're natives, where we can go door to door. But I would agree, there's no real portal for us to offer our services to the city compared to other cities like Greensboro, where we know what the bidding is, we know what time and or what qualifications we need to have.
Thank you, Jermaine.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Sharon, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm Sharon Green, on Wings Computer Solutions. And again, like Dr. Harrison and Jermaine have already said, I have business that I've never had in the past with the city of High Point, but there's no easy way to find out who the contacts are for the businesses, for the services that I want to offer to the city of High Point. So a portal would be a really good idea. And also, I know that the library at one point had a quote unquote Black business directory where they had all the businesses there. And I did get some leads from that being in that business directory, but it is nowhere near where it needs to be in order for me to continue to even perform the business and the services I'd like to perform on a full-time basis. So I'd like to see a way to have that publicized so that we are at least aware and be able to take a look to determine whether or not the services that we offer will comply with what they're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hannah, can I share one thing on that? I am sitting on a committee, a community committee, and this is outside the city of High Point per se, but in High Point. There is going to be a directory compiled relevant to businesses of color and minority-owned businesses that is going to be put together so that we as a community can work more in sync with the furniture market.
That's embarrassing.
Typically, when the furniture market comes to High Point, you see a lot of us working in those positions of service and that kind of thing. But this is a directory that's going to be put into effect. So, and this directory reminded me of what the young woman said. So this is something that's coming down the pike. That information will be out, and I'm hoping that all of these companies that are in High Point that's on this phone get in touch with Cynthia's office there in the city of High Point and get registered with the city of High Point. If you're not registered and you're not in the portal, at least if you're in the portal, you have and you're under the right codes, you have an opportunity to get some information, if nothing but information about what I'm talking about as it relates to developing that directory. So Cynthia Barnes is your person in the city of High Point that is the WMBE coordinator. And I would urge all of you on this call not only to get in touch with Talisha Roberts at Thrive, get in touch with Cynthia Barnes at the city of High Point so that you can at least be in the mix. If they don't know about you, then you don't get any information. But at least if we know about you, you will at least be informed, if nothing more, that there is a disparity study, there is a survey, and move forward from that. But be assured there's something in the works on that directory working for you again.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison.
Good morning. I am Gwendolyn Cartwright, and I am the Principal Consultant at Cartwright Global Development. I'm a native of High Point, living right here in the 27260 zip code. And I wanted to probably follow up first on some stuff that Dr. Harrison said, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I am actually in the area. What Cartwright Global does is we do global development in the area of procurement and grants and contracts. I come with federal grant experience. And I can tell you, being a native here, that most of my clientele is happening outside of the area. So the disparity is huge. One would think that with my experience that I would actually have more business within my home city, but I don't. And so I think that's discouraging. I think that I am familiar with some of the local resources, but what I have found is poor follow-up. Like, I have reached out to certain people to introduce myself, to get information, lack of follow-up, to try to meet up or even provide opportunities. Again, I echo Dr. Harrison's statement about, like, I get all kinds of information from SBA and I participate in their stuff. I'm registered with sam.gov, all of that stuff that requires to do work in that area, in that space. Probably about maybe 8 months ago, someone reached out to me from the city of Greensboro. So this is yet another example. I'm right here in High Point, and they wanted to meet with me about the establishment of a grants office in Greensboro. And so it's kind of discouraging when I can do work all over the country, but not do work in my own area with my expertise and the fact that I'm a native. I mean, native, Guilford College graduate, spent time, I'm retired from the United States Department of Justice. I have federal grant peer experience, all of that. And so part of the goal for Cartwright Global is that we want to elevate small businesses in order to help them compete on federal contracts and federal grants, because bringing that area of policy, the importance of policy. And so I really don't see where there is a connection to some of the money. I think to be appreciative of some of the stuff that's happening as it relates to the monetary contributions for minority businesses in High Point is important, but I think it's a drop in the bucket. I mean, I think if we really want to be intentional with it, small businesses need a whole lot more money than a $5,000 grant or $10,000 in order to really sustain business operations. The other thing is about what we focus on in building business. I think new businesses need a lot of capacity building support, and to know that there's people who can provide that support in this community, but yet have an issue with receiving the funding to do the work, it's really discouraging. This is something that I have expressed even with I have done some work with some small nonprofits here, but the reality is a small nonprofit with a budget under $100,000 who needs this kind of comprehensive service can't afford to do it. And so I think that we need to start looking at where we're spending our dollars. I think some conversations need to happen legislatively, because with all funding, I mean, funding is coming here from local sources, but a lot of it is federal dollars. And I would imagine that this city is competing on money to bring in money to this area, but I think it's such a small amount to what is really coming into the city. And that's just kind of my 2 cents. So I think the people who are sitting at the table, who are making decisions as it relates to legislative policy, I think the people who are asking for federal dollars to come to the community, especially with the statistics here in High Point, being that there's disparities in more areas than just small business, I just think that it should be more of an intentional effort and more resources available to small business. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Gwendolyn. Oh, let me check the chat while we've got a moment. Gwendolyn, okay, I see your comment. Jermaine, thank you for providing your business name.
Hannah, while we've got a moment, if I may, I'm going to step up one more time. I want everybody on this call also to know that there is a policy-based reparations initiative that is on the table in the city of High Point, that what we're doing factors into this meeting, and all of what we're talking about factors into. And please know, especially Gwendolyn, and funding and what you were just talking about, there are some folks around the table and some discussions being had regarding many of the topics that you just talked about. I want people to also know that the policy-based reparations and the 5 pillars that rests on, and one of them is, the economic development, education, health, healthcare, small business, entrepreneurship, things of that nature. Just know that there are things happening. Sometimes when we don't see stuff happening, we don't think stuff is happening. But I want to assure you that there are some things on the table right now that you talked about, Gwendolyn, that's being addressed. I can't promise you that it's going to be overnight or tomorrow or next week, but I can promise you that some of the stuff that you're talking about is on the table under that pillar, under that policy-based reparations initiative that this city, the NAACP and others worked really hard to make that a reality. So just sit tight. And I know we've been sitting tight and we've been asking you to wait for years and years and years. But I know that there's some things going on, and I feel your pain because they said Jesus was a stranger in his own land. I feel your pain because all of my business comes out of Raleigh and Durham and Winston-Salem and Greensboro. It does not come out of High Point for the most part.
Thank you for sharing, Dr. Harrison. April Parker, I see your comment in the chat. Please feel free to expand on that if you would like to.
I don't want to take up too much space, but I know that everybody wants to share resources. I just think about what created such disparity between particularly races. And when it comes to development, High Points is and will continue to make huge strides in the future. But my biggest concern is that usually the folks that are making those decisions around planning and future development of the city are the people who are property owners. And so I'm curious, even though that there's small business support, what does it look like to close the gaps between the people who own the building? So we often get job offers or job trainings or small business grants, but we wouldn't necessarily need all of those if we had the same type of equity as others. So I'm curious as to, is there a way of like co-owning properties together as Black folks? What is the innovative way to build?
April, I'm going to offer something for that too. We just had a meeting Tuesday night, and there will be a person coming into our August 6th meeting. First of all, the Fair Housing Ordinance in High Point, yay, yay, applaud, High Point. I don't know if you all saw the article in the High Point Enterprise. This is the first in the history of High Point to have a fair ordinance, a fair housing ordinance where land tenants have a voice. But the other thing we talked about is how do we bring about more affordable housing in High Point? That discussion was had Tuesday night, and more discussion is going to be on August 6th. As I say, these conversations are just opening up a plethora of what needs to happen in High Point as far as the breadth of the conversations that has needed to happen for so long. And this is such a magnitude. This is a huge, all of this stuff we're talking about is so large in its magnitude that things are going to change in High Point. They're going to change. They can't do anything but change because there's so much on the table right now that's being discussed and trying to work through. How do we tackle all of these issues? But we can't tackle but one of them at a time. And I can tell you that that conversation is open and is being discussed about how do we more creatively come up with a way for people to own property, because wealth is built from equity in property. And so much of that wealth and so much of that property ownership was taken away from us as Black people over the years. And you look at every city, every place, and even here in High Point, even in Guilford County, Black people who own property, back in the day, sometimes that property was taken away from them. And those folks that are beneficiaries of that are beneficiaries of that today, as it relates to how they have the equity and they have the wealth and we don't. So therefore, there is things on the horizon that we are looking at. How do you more creatively come up with people to own homes that are in the 60, 70, 80, $90,000 house income range? Because we have housing that's $250,000, 200,000 and up. But what do we do about these people who cannot afford a house because their income doesn't allow them to afford the houses that are on the market? Well, we need to start looking at houses that are being built, that those individuals who have 60, 65, 70, $75,000 a year income. So that was a great observation, great question, a great opportunity to embellish on that just a bit, but things have got to continue to change.
Dr. Harrison,
Oh.
the meeting that you are talking about on August 6th, is that open to everyone?
Yes, it is. It is our NAACP general branch meeting. At the beginning of those meetings, we have a briefing, and there is going to be a briefing in that meeting on affordable housing in High Point. So if you put your email in the chat, Rhonda, I'll make sure you get a link, the link to that meeting.
Thank you, ma'am.
And Rhonda, I see your comment in the chat as well about getting people's email addresses. So I know like Dr. Roberts has been mentioned, and Dr. Harrison, obviously you've been extremely involved. So if anybody wants to share their email addresses in the chat, please feel free to do so if you would like to network or communicate with anyone.
Hello, I wanted to comment on Dr. Harrison's conversation about the housing piece. Let me just first say that I'm not completely aware. I have heard bits and pieces about, I guess, the reparation. There's a committee, to my understanding, that's here in High Point to talk about that. And I did review a document. Someone sent it to me. It might have been some months ago. And I remember thinking of the population of people and the things that were left out of that document that I think that should have been highlighted. This, again, is just Gwen's opinion. But one of the things as it relates to the housing and affordable housing, like I'm one of these people where I'm living is I kind of inherited the house from my grandmother. So I'm living here on Elwood, right on the other side of High Point University, which this community doesn't look anything like it used to look probably 15 years ago. I'm in between Montlou and Parkview. And, you know, one of the things that I've noticed too is as we're talking about and developing programs, I feel, and I'm such a community person. So I feel like a lot of times the people who need to be at the table aren't at the table and they're not getting the information. So even with the conversation of housing and how to allocate resources for reparations, the concern for me would be the people who really need that would probably not get the information because it's not easy to obtain information. Or I haven't personally found it easy to get information here in High Point, like whether it's the website or special programs that help with even people who may not be credit, you know, to the point that they need their credit worked on. And so I would like to see resources designed to help those people because it's great if you get programs, but if people don't know that the programs exist or the people who are making the decisions aren't at the table to talk about what their real challenges are, then things can get missed. And I know, again, personally, like the particular house that I'm in is an older home. My grandparents had it. They were never able to like update it or do anything. And so even like I've had to spend an enormous amount of money just trying to get the house, you know, mildly upgraded in my area. And so I just think that, you know, I think, again, it would be just so important as we look at, sometimes I don't think the issue is the lack of resources, it's how the resources are allocated. And so I think that there should be more of an intentional focus of really bringing people to the table and making kind of an effort outside of the regular kind of same people are at the table for the same discussions, but not all the time that the people that are at the table who are making decisions are really impacted with the result of that. And so, you know, I think to that point, that's what I feel like should be better. And that's going to be across the board. So whether we're talking about housing in the area, where we're talking about small business, I think that, you know, when I've looked at even some things presentation wise on social media, Dr. Harrison, I think you mentioned this earlier. I feel like it might have been you who said this. I'm seeing the same people. It's like a core group of people who are receiving the funding, who are getting the information and participating. But there's a whole community of people who have no idea what is happening in High Point and how this city is growing. and how it's even grown and even what the future plans are for the city. So I just think that more intentionality needs to be put there so that we can make sure that people are at the least invited to the table.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. Bernita, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. And to your point, Ms. Cartwright, I think you're absolutely correct in what you're saying. I think that, you know, there are so many moving parts to the work that's being done in High Point, and it's so much so that sometimes the invitations and the information gets lost in the sauce. You know, we had the Project 2045, which talked about future growth and what we do in High Point and what housing is going to look like and what neighborhoods are going to look like, and these the centers that we will have in the future. Probably won't be here to see it, I'm going to say that. But at the end of the day, these conversations don't always happen in a space where there's an invitation to where the conversation takes place. Sometimes it's in just a general meeting. When you talk about the NAACP, we're in the meeting, we're having a conversation. Somebody was exposed to something or in a meeting and heard these things, and it then starts or jumpstarts another whole conversation. There are times I think that, and I think this is good, where we need to be starting our own conversations, where you're sitting in this room and you hear this information and you see 4 or 5 or 10 people on this call that says, let's get together and talk about what this is. And so I think part of it is we have to start reading. We have to start looking at these things when they come out. These dates and times for meetings are being put out there on blast. There's social media, there's the city's website with information. I just think that, you know, information is key. And I do a lot of reading during the course of a day. I start my day reading and I end my day reading about things that, you know, jumpstart things that I work with and things that I do. So High Point is on the cusp, I think, of doing some really important and intentional things, but we do need to be in the room at the table where these conversations are taking place. And we have to be intentional about sharing that information when it does happen. So if Ms. Cartwright is not in the room, what vehicle do we use to get that information out? So you understand that meeting took place, number one, and that you then can say, I think I want to be a part of that. So we have always been sort of like marginalized in that regard. We don't have Black law firms in High Point, very few and very small. We don't have Black medical practices in High Point. We don't have any of those things because the city was not necessarily in a position at one time to bear fruit for individuals to plant their seeds here. You see, that, you know, they're going to go where they think they're going to get the highest and best use of the talents that they bring. And High Point has not always been that. We're the furniture capital of the world. That's been our focus. We were doing textiles. That's been our focus. So we've not been that, I think, business sort of directed city over the years. That's not what we've done. And so I think this is something new for all of us. I think it's an excellent opportunity for us to make some things happen and to do it in a different way so that the things that you're experiencing and you're asking those questions, we can be better about making those things happen. Through our business High Point, I think it's an excellent way to get started. Everybody on this call ought to belong to the chamber. You may not think it's value add, but there are things happening at the chamber. There are meetings that are taking place and conversations that are taking place. And if you don't hear what you want to hear, start your own conversation. Reach out to them and say, look, this is my area of interest. Can we get together and start a conversation around X, whatever that may be? But we have got to be more intentional as African Americans in this community to make sure that we're talking about stuff that's important to us, that we're having conversations around things that are germane to the work that you do and your presence in this community. And it's happening. And if we're not at the table, there's somebody there, I guarantee you, that's saying something about what you're interested in. But we don't necessarily want to hear all from them. I'd love to be in a room with you, Ms. Cartwright, for us to have a conversation, because I know a whole lot of stuff that I would like to be able to share. I just don't have enough hours in the day to get it all out. That's what I'm going to say to you. So again, you know, you've got Dr. Roberts on this call. Make sure you connect with her and you let her know about the things that you're interested in doing. Connect with the NAACP. We're real busy. I say this, and I don't mean disrespect to Dr. Harrison, but she's a president of the NAACP on steroids. So we're busy. We're doing things. We have information that's flowing through our organization. Stuff is happening, y'all. We just got to be in the place where it's going on. So I would say that to you. I'll be happy to put my information in the chat, but I don't know too many people who don't know how to reach me somewhere. So, but I'll make sure I put that information there. But there are things going on in our community, really good stuff. We just have to stay connected and make sure we're in that communication stream of what that is.
Thank you so much, Bernita. And thank you guys for, using this as an opportunity to network and connect with each other. For the last 15 minutes or so that we have for this meeting, I do kind of want to direct the conversation back to specific testimony and experiences doing business with the city of High Point, or attempting to do business with the city of High Point. Like I mentioned, that is the purpose of this session, to really hear your candid testimony about those experiences doing business, so that out of the anecdotal evidence collection of the disparity study, we can have clear recommendations that we would like to make to the city of High Point for them to be able to implement as policy. Bettina, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you so much. I wanted to appreciate everybody that spoke on the panel this morning. Make sure I wanted to shout out Dr. Roberts with Thrive 2.0 and the vision that she's taking us forward in. I am a new entrepreneur. I started 2 businesses at the same time in 2022. That has been an experience, I can say. One of the things that Dr. Hairston stated is she confirmed that I wasn't crazy, because sometimes I would go on to the procurement site for High Point and I could not find anything that spoke to the other that I offer as far as my services. So it was intimidating at points where I was like, well, am I not doing something right? Because you can't see the opportunities that are clear out there. As I stated on Thursday night, there are 4 parts to the city. There's a north, the south, the east, and the west. I love that downtown is growing and that effort, but there are other areas of the towns that need co-working spaces and opportunities for growth so that businesses can thrive in a forward-going manner. Finding out the codes that we need on top of the NAIC codes that are used to be able to uncover the opportunities to get the low-hanging fruit that lie in, that create wealth for us. Sometimes I think we need to take a note from like the book of Biden, where he said, you know what, this is, not my time. Let me give somebody else an opportunity to come up and bring some young energy into this space of entrepreneurship. I would love for us to see if there are companies that are out there that are saying, no, I don't have to wait for a disparity study results to do something, but is there a listing that can be put out that says, hey, we're willing to be able to work with these small businesses to create opportunities for growth and for wealth. And that's without the disparity study, because I know that we just know that it's needed. And I think that if there is a call to action requesting something of that manner, we may be able to find additional opportunities for us to actually do something now. Because Bernita said something so eloquently. She said she might not be here to even to receive that. Now, Bernita is a wealth of knowledge. She knows so much, and she's doing a lot with WRLP and in the city. However, I would love to see that within that growth, that some things happen now for people who have been in business for years, not just the new entrepreneurs, but the ones that have been here on grind, on focus, working, building. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bettina. So I just wanted to make sure I got correctly when you were speaking about your experiences trying to do business with the city of High Point with your two businesses that you started. It was just mainly what you were saying. You can't find the information, that matches with the services that you offer from the city of High Point. The information's not there.
Challenging to see it, to uncover it, because when you're going on, you see a lot of the things that are on there are from several years past.
Okay.
If you click on that information, you don't know when the and or either I don't know where to look. I can say that it could be a user, something that I'm not aware of, but when I hear echoed business being said from Thursday night until today, so two different sessions, some different group of people on here, and when you see someone as rich and knowledge as Dr. Harrison that says something of that nature, it gives you that aha of, hold on, there has to be and we know that there is a divide. We're just trying to close that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bettina. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left for anyone to share their experiences as a business owner, attempting to do business with the city of High Point, or what their experiences and their testimony has been doing business. Yeah, I see your hand, Dr. Alvis. I just wanted to say that before calling on you. Thank you. You can go ahead.
So I'll jump in. Okay, thank you. I'll jump in really quick. My internet is unstable, so I have to keep coming off and on of video to make sure I don't get frozen. Griffin and Strong has reached out to the Office of Thrive individually. So we have had the opportunity, I have had the opportunity to have some time with them about the disparity study. And we are working, I'm already working on some of those things. So I would say for those of you, you don't have to wait on the results of the disparity study. Keep me honest. That's my role here in the Office of Thrive, for you to bring some of that to me so that I can do some of the heavy lifting for us all. One of the things that we will be doing in the Office of Thrive is to kind of peel back the onion a little bit and look at how to navigate some of those systems so that you can find the things that you're looking for, taking some of the intimidation out of the application process, how to get through an actual proposal, because I have a small business myself and I have done proposals and it's actually taken me 30 days to write some of them. Right. So we are doing some of that work here in the Office of Thrive. If you are not a member of Thrive, you need to become a member of Thrive. Go to the Business Chamber website and look for Thrive under the Business tab. Click the button and create your interest form so that you can get into orientation and so that you can begin to take advantage of some of those resources. Because I understand some of those challenges. I have had conversations with folks about how can we do more business with the city, whether it's directly, so from business to the city, or through what's called a tier 2 approach, where a business who is the majority holder of the contract often will come and do some subcontracting. And so Thrive is also having conversations in that space as well, where Thrivers will have the opportunity to be subcontractors. Because to be quite honest, in some of these contracts, you have to have a lot of insurance. There's so many requirements in order to do business at that level. And then your invoicing process could take up to 60, 90 days for you to even get paid. So you would have to have resources on the front end to make sure that you can do the business. So we are doing some creative things through the Office of Thrive to help Thrivers become eligible to get those types of contracts, either directly or indirectly through subcontracting. So know that we've had this conversation with Griffin and Strong personally, and a lot of those things are already have been captured from our conversation.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Roberts.
you.
Thank you. I wanted to point out that I did drop some resources in the chat. So first off, I put the survey link. That is the survey of business owners. If you have taken that, thank you so much. It's extremely important to our disparity study. As I mentioned, it's a way for us to quantify the experiences that you've had doing business or attempting to do business with the city. If you have completed it, like I said, thank you. If you could share it with any other business owners, anybody in your network that may not have gotten the information or would also love to participate. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes, and it's just a questionnaire about your business and your experiences. And then the study website and the study email are also listed there. For the last 5 minutes, I just want to mention again, I know there's a few people on the call who have not had a chance to speak about their experiences doing business or attempting to do business with the city of High Point. So I just want to mention that for the last 5 minutes. If you would like to share your testimony about that, please feel free. Dr. Harrison, I see your comment. I'm going to put my email in the chat. I would love to have a conversation with you. As I mentioned, as part of the anecdotal evidence, we do conduct organizational interviews. Like I met with Dr. Roberts from Thrive. I have been reaching out to the NAACP, so I would love to do a one-on-one organizational interview with you as well. And that's my email address.
Hello.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi. I wanted to say thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I've gained so much information just from this one call that is sure to catapult me to where I want to be in business. In the way of testimony, years ago, I did apply for the Department of Justice grant. Gwendolyn, I could have used you then, didn't know you, but I needed a pass through in just filling out the application. And one of the staff members from the city of High Point offered to be that pass through. So that would be my testimony, that I did get some information, but I had to work really, really hard because I didn't know who to go to or how to get the information that I needed. And just through a series of lots of telephone calls and, hey, you want to try this person, you might want to call that person, I was able to find what I needed. But I would have loved to have had a Gwendolyn, Miss Roberts, and Miss Hairston back then, but I got you now. So thank you, ladies, so much. And thank you, Hannah, for hosting this meeting.
Of course, Sharon. Thank you so much for sharing that testimony.
I just wanted to comment. I know we don't have a lot of time. Thank you, Ms. Green. I would have absolutely loved to help you with that because, again, I've served as a federal grant reviewer for BJA for the Bureau of Justice Grants. But one of the things that I really want, this is more of a suggestion. I know in DC has what's called an Office of Grants and Partnerships. And I think one of the things that can be helpful in some of the work that some of the organizations doing locally is a lot of times people want to work together, but they don't know how to collaborate. So like, what is it that if two organizations get together, especially when we talk about developing federal proposals, how can 2 or 3 organizations get together and collaborate and know what they all bring to the table and how that they can collectively? I think Dr. Roberts talked about this. It may take one entity that needs to be the lead agency, but of course it takes the work for the implementation with the other partners. So I think that's the thing too, is also creating that space that we're also building the capacity of not just our own businesses, but also the businesses around us, because then that also builds community. And so providing that space that we can have collaborative discussions, we can talk about how to work with people, how to get what we need. It only strengthens the city when you start talking about larger amounts of money. We can't do that individually. Where people are fighting over $10,000 or $25,000, we can come together and ask for $2.5 million. And so to me, that's the logic and the mindset that I'm in. And so I thank you again. But again, there's so many people with such great information on this call, great skill sets, experience. And if we, excuse me, figure out a way to collaboratively work together, we could do so much more. So thank you.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. Okay, I know we're getting close to time and I think the conversation is dying down a bit, but I'm happy to stay on if anyone else would like to share any testimony or experiences that they have. As I mentioned too, if you think of anything else that you would like to share or think of any questions, please feel free to contact the disparity study email. It's monitored, like I mentioned, by myself. And so we always take into account any testimony or comments that are shared via the email. And like I said, I can respond to any questions that you might have about the disparity study there as well. All righty. Well, we have hit time and I think we have hit the end of the conversation. So I'm going to thank you all for attending today's session. It was it was so participatory. It was great. So much information shared, as everyone has mentioned. So I thank you all so much. And I will get the information out to you guys. I'm going to send everyone who put an email in the chat. I'll put together a list and send it out to the attendees of this meeting so that you guys can have that as a resource. Let me check the chat. We are all good. Okay. Thank you guys. You have a great rest of your day and thank you for attending. Bye-bye.